Here we go. All right, welcome everybody. Let's just begin. I'm going to start with today's called Unlocking the Talmud. What that means is we're just going to read a piece of Talmud, piece of Gemara, and in the original text, we'll look inside. I added it in English. If you look in the chat, you can click the English over here and scroll down if you want to do that until we find, if anybody sees that. You're going to scroll all the way down until you see in the English, the Gemara proceeds to interpret the verse written concerning him, Korach. I know that sounds kind of funny. But if you want to follow along in the actual Hebrew, which is where I will be reading from, open up you have a little page over here. And this is how we do it in yeshiva. What we'll say is, okay, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines from the bottom, after the 2 dots, it says Vayikach Korach. That's where we'll start. Now, what exactly happened? What are we going to be studying over here? We're going to be studying the names. What exactly happened? Well, not exactly happened. Some ideas of what happened by the whole rebellion. Tonight, I'm going to give a class on the actual parsha, on the actual what actually happened. It's supposed to be a question and answer, but because we don't have any questions in yet, we're not going to. We won't do that. I'll just give you a nice little synopsis of the entire parsha, together with a little bit of Kabbalah behind it. But nevertheless, inside the Gemara over here, inside the Talmud from Sanhedrin, Talmud Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin, which deals with the court system, we talk about the story of Korach. What exactly happened? And let me give you a little bit of a synopsis. I know some of you I've learned with individually, so this might be a little bit familiar, but nevertheless, I'll give you a little bit of a synopsis. What is the oral tradition? What is the Torah? The oral Torah. What is this Talmud that we're looking at right now? When Moses went up on the mountain, what exactly happened? He was there for 40 days and 40 nights. Now the Torah wasn't divided yet. God taught him the entire Torah, but it's not like God taught him, they divided the Torah into 40 parts, and each night he learned a different part of the Torah. Every day, God would teach Moses exactly what happened, and it says that he would learn it the entire day, and then he would actually forget it the next day. He would learn it, the entire Torah that night, and then he would forget it the next day. So what exactly happened? When God was teaching him the Torah, he taught him the entire Torah. He didn't just give him the 10 Commandments or the entire Torah itself. Hold on a second. Can you guys hear that background noise? I don't exactly know why my microphone isn't working. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever, we'll just power through it. God taught him the entire Torah. God taught him not only the 10 Commandments, but how to learn from the Torah. If you look in the Torah and you open up the book of the Torah, it's a closed book. We don't even understand any of it, what it means. In fact, words are written out of order. It's all chronologically out of order. Words are misspelled, and it's like a weird, very poorly written book, which leads you to understand that there must be someone teaching. There must be a way to interpret this book. The word Torah itself comes from the word hora, which means to teach. It's a book of lessons. Now, God gave him principles. God gave Moses some principles on how to interpret the Torah and read from the Torah. And throughout the time, those principles were discussed mouth by mouth. They weren't written down ever. It's a very long story. And in fact, the rabbi of the shul of the synagogue here is giving a 35-part series, exactly how the oral tradition came about. So it's not so easy. It's not so, we can't just do it in 5 minutes. But nevertheless, this is what it eventually had to get written down, because everyone was forgetting how to read the Torah and learn from the Torah. So they wrote it down in something called the Mishnah, written by Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. He was extremely wealthy, and he commissioned a lot of people, and they wrote it down. And eventually, that wasn't enough, and they had to then write it down into the Gemara, expound upon the Mishnah. So what we're going to look into is actually the Gemara itself. We're not going to look in the Mishnah. And what it is you can imagine a group of rabbis are sitting inside a shul just like this at a table, and they're having a discussion. What exactly is going on in the parsha? And here we go. Let's just jump inside. 9 lines from the bottom. V'yikach Korach. Now, we're going to dissect a few lines from the Torah, and we're going to focus on the names of the people. The name in Judaism, a name is very important. A name shows on your essence. We aren't quick to change a name. We are very particular. In fact, the Torah says that when a parent gives their child a name, they have a little bit of prophecy into saying the name. The name reflects upon the essence, and in some ways it reflects on the future outcome of the child. In other words, the path that the child is going to follow. Now, you'll find in the Torah, for example, you'll find in the Torah some weird names, very weird names. For example, when Sodom and Gomorrah, when the destruction of the city of Sodom and Amorah were happening, so Lot and his 2 daughters went to hide in the mountains, and they thought that the world was being destroyed again, just like in the times of Noah. So they said, "Hey, if we're going to be the last people on earth, how are we going to? We have to procreate the earth. We have to recreate the earth." So who was around? Just the father and the 2 daughters. So the daughters said, "Hey, let's get our father drunk, and we'll sleep with our father, and then hopefully we'll conceive and have build the nation, build the world again." It's kind of sick, kind of sad that that happened. But if I'll give you a little bit of an insight, I'm sure I've told you this before. Some of you, I know, that ultimately Mashiach comes from this conception. King David comes from this conception. King Solomon comes from this, and that's a whole Kabbalistic background. Anyway, that requires a Kabbalistic understanding of why that had to happen that way. But they named one of their children Moab, and became the Moabite nation. And what does Moab mean? Moab means from my father. So they named their kid after an incident that they had with their father. It's kind of weird and like disgusting. But the word Adam comes from the word. Why the name Adam, the first man on earth? Well, for 2 reasons. Adamah. Adam comes from Adamah, which means earth, because he was formed. The Torah says that he was formed from earth, and then God blew a soul into him. But he was made up of earth. He's made up of the material, physical material. But it's also Adama La'elyon. He's like his father in heaven. He's like God. In other words, he's half God, half human. He has this soul, this godly soul in him, but he's also this physical being. Now, that's very important to understand. That concept is a Kabbalistic understanding. That's a very important concept to understand. That everything you see that there was 2 parts with Adam. There was, on this one hand, he was like this physical being, and on this other hand, he was a godly being. Everything in this world is a mixture of good and bad, which means godliness, revelation of godliness, and a non-revelation of godliness. And I'm speaking kind of fast, and this is just all in the way of introduction. Why that's important to understand is, you'll see, Korach's name is, they're going to interpret Korach's name as being very negative. The problem is, he's not, that's kind of not fair, because, oh no, we got to invite other people in here. Oh, sorry, everybody. Wait, everyone's coming in. There's more people coming in. I apologize. Okay, can everyone hear me? Sorry, we started right on the dot, so I apologize. I didn't see everybody to let everybody in. Does everybody who just joined, let me just see if you can hear me. 1 second. Okay, everybody who joined, does everybody have the handout? If you don't, just say something if you don't have it. And now I also put it in the chat. If you look in the chat, I have it in English. I would actually prefer if everyone just did it in Hebrew, and I'll translate it. And there's a reason for that. You'll learn more Hebrew. You'll learn Hebrew much faster, and you can always look it up in English afterwards. And I gave you the English, so we can get into that a little bit later. Just to continue on what I was talking about, and for those of you who just joined, it's okay. I'll give a little synopsis. everything in the Torah, everything in this world, as a mixture of good and bad. Now, good means godliness, revealed godliness, and bad means that which is not revealed, a non-revealed goodness. So we're going to, the Talmud is going to explore the names of the people in this week's Parsha. Korach, Dasan, Aviram, On ben Peles. I don't know if you're familiar with this week's Parsha. Tonight I'm going to give a class on this week's Parsha. But if you're not familiar, what exactly happened? Let's just go through the story very, very quickly. Korach was the first cousin of Moses. He was from the tribe of Levi. And Korach had a problem. Korach said, "Why are you appointing your brother and his son to be the heads of the Jewish people? We all stood by God. We all heard God speak. Why are you making yourself greater and more higher than everybody else?" Let me just mute everybody. Excuse me, 1 second. Why are you raising yourself up higher than everybody else? And Moses was like, "Hey man, that wasn't me. You know, God was the one that told me to do it." And so they have a showdown. And Moses said, "Okay, I promise you, it's not for me. In fact, we'll have a showdown and we'll bring incense, ketoris, as we call it." Now, there's one job in the temple or in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, that was the most dangerous job, and that was the bringing of the incense. God says, if you bring the incense incorrectly, you will die. So Moses was saying, look, I promise, he was trying to deter them from wanting to take over the seat of the high priest. Aaron was the high priest. His brother Aaron was the high priest. And Korach wanted to be the high priest. And he said, okay, you realize, Korach, that if you are not meant to be the one to bring the incense, then you will die. And all 250 men that Korach got together said, yeah, we know the consequences, and we're willing to prove to you that you're not the most holy person. In fact, we're all holy. And Korach's biggest issue, there's many issues, but Korach's, one of the ways he got everyone riled up and all of these people to follow him and to say that Moses, you shouldn't be the leader, and Aaron, you shouldn't be a leader, was what happened by the giving of the Torah. At the end of the 40 days of Moses learning Torah, there was the sin of the golden calf. And who was involved in the sin of the golden calf? Aaron. Aaron HaKohen, the high priest, was involved. Now, he was trying to curb their enthusiasm. He was trying to delay it, but it looked like he was involved. And if you read in the Torah, it says that he was asking the ladies to bring more gold and to bring more silver, and he was hoping that they would get kind of tired from trying to make this golden calf, like all this moving back and forth, schlepping as we call it, the schlepping back and forth to their tent to get more stuff. And now it turns out they were very excited, and they did it very quickly, but he was trying to find ways to delay the actual making of the golden calf so that Moses would finally come down and they would know that Moses didn't die and yada, yada, yada. But nevertheless, it looked like that he was really involved in it. And so his Korach said to all the people, yo, look how terrible this guy is. He's so holy. He was involved in the making of the golden calf. In fact, I think he even threw in some items into the fire that helped make the golden calf come alive. So there were a lot of, so it was very easy to get people involved. Now, who were these people that were involved? You would think that they were bad people, right? In fact, the Torah says that they were Bnei Yisrael Kroim Kedoshim. They were holy people. These were very, very holy people that were rebelling against Moses and Aaron. To the extent, and we're going to get into that story, and that's the main part of what I want to talk about today, to the extent that they were so holy that it saved someone's life, and you'll see exactly what happened. So I want you to look inside. Let's look inside the Talmud text. If you would like to ask a question, you can unmute yourself. Normally in yeshiva, you don't ask questions until the very end, because the questions might be answered. So let's go up 9 lines from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 lines from the bottom. It's the fifth word in. It's Vayikach Korach, right after those 2 dots. If you can see those 2 dots, 9 lines from the bottom. I'm going to read and give you the explanation, and we'll see what happened. Very interesting episode that took place. Vayikach Korach, says the Torah, and Korach literally took, meaning Korach took himself away. He removed himself from the rest of the Jewish people. He took himself to the side. But now they're going to give a different interpretation of what Vayikach Korach actually means. Amar Reish Lakish, says Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish was a sage. And just to give you an example, this is very important. Reish Lakish was a sage, but who was he? He was actually a former highway robber. And there's a whole story behind him. He saw his teacher, who would eventually become his teacher, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was swimming in the Jordan, the Jordan River, and Rabbi Yochanan didn't have facial hair. He couldn't grow facial hair, and he actually had long hair. And he was swimming in the Jordan River, and Reish Lakish, who was a highway robber, thought he was a woman, and he jumped into the river, and he jumped so far. It was extremely impressive that he was able to jump so far. And Rabbi Yochanan saw him jump and was very impressed and understood that because of his physical strength, he must have incredible spiritual strength. And he said to him, I can tell from your physical strength that you have spiritual greatness inside of you. In fact, people who are very wild, the Torah talks about people who are very wild, have very great spiritual potential in them. Like we saw by Esau, right? Jacob had 2 sons. Yitzchak had 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau was extremely wild. Ishmael was a very wild person, but he had great spiritual potential. In fact, their father showed great patience with them and wanted to learn with them and teach with them and spent most of their time with them. Reish Lakish ultimately turned from a highway robber into a great sage. And one of the reasons why the Torah is saying this story in the name of Reish Lakish is to show that Korach, even though his name showed on something very negative, that all these people seem very negative, they had great potential to be very positive. They could have, if they would have worked on themselves and curbed their energy, their spiritual energy towards good, they would have been giants, just like Reish Lakish turned into a giant. So Amar Reish Lakish, let's go back inside. Shalakach mikach ra la'atzmoi. Why does it say v'yikach Korach? Why does it say Korach took for himself? It should have said, why does it say Korach took? It should have said Korach, and Korach rose up, and Korach left the Jewish people, the Jewish folk. It says v'yikach Korach. It says Korach took. What does it mean he took? Why did it use that word? It says Reish Lakish shalakach mechach ra la'atzmoi. He took he bought a bad purchase. Lakach comes from the word lakeach, which means to buy something. The Torah uses the word lekach, v'yikach Korach, to say that he purchased for himself a bad team. The Torah is hinting to us that Korach was extremely wealthy, and he paid off a lot of these people to join him. He said, look, we're going to have a life of opulence. Now, they were very holy people, but they also said, look, Korach said like this, if you're very wealthy, you can study Torah very well. When you have no worries about money and health and all these different things, your mind is what's called menuchas hanefesh, menuchas hadas. It's very settled. They were able. You'll have a great life. You'll have a very easy life, a very settled life. So he said, I'm going to pay you and I'll support you to have a good life. But it ended up being mekach ra, a bad purchase. It wasn't a very good idea. The people he took with him ended up not being such great people. Reish Lakish continues, Korach shenasa karcha b'Yisrael. What's the name Korach mean? Korach actually means bald. Yeah, I can attest to that. Korach means bald. That's his name, but it also means bald. Why? What happened? Because Korach everybody ended up getting swallowed up by the. There was an earthquake. I don't know if you remember the story. There was an earthquake, and they all became swallowed up. And they left a bald spot. The Torah says there was a bald spot amongst the Jewish people. Yeah, this little 250 men out of 3 million. All of a sudden, you look, you see a few hairs going around, 250 hairs out of 3 million. Oh, you have a receding hairline. That's what happened. He caused a bald spot amongst the Jewish people, but even in a positive sense, because they were they were very choice people. It wasn't like a bald spot over here. It was a bald spot right over here where everyone could see it. To say that this story was very significant, and it left a strong impression. So the Gemara continues. Ben Yotzir ben Shartiach Allah v'skol ha'olam ketzarayim. Yeah, it says that Korach, his name was Ben Yotzir, and Yotzir comes from the word afternoon. It says that Korach was so he inflamed the people so much. He got the people so excited in a negative way. It was like the sun in the afternoon. Okay, I'm not going to go too much. I want to get to one particular story. I'm going to go a little bit further ahead, and I want to get to one particular story that has a very powerful lesson, I think. So let's go down. I just want to, as a way of introduction. By the way, if anybody has any questions, this is like my, please stop, unmute yourself and ask me a question. When the Torah talks about the story, it says 4 people.
Sorry, Rabbi. Sorry I was late. I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm Julian. Are we following from the attachments that you had sent earlier? Or?
Yeah. Yes. I have it printed out. And we're 9 lines from the bottom.
On which one?
On
10A?
109B. You see that one?
Too easy.
I apologize. 109B, yes. There's 110A and there's 109B.
Okay.
110A and 109A. 1, 2. But actually, we're gonna move a little bit further down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I tell you.
But it's all in Hebrew anyway. Okay.
Yeah, but
I'll try to follow along, but I can't read Hebrew, so that's okay.
That's okay. I put it in English. In the chat. You can also follow along in the English.
Whereabouts is that one? Sorry, I missed it. Sorry, I was a bit late.
That's okay. No, that's fine. We're all trying to figure it out over here.
Okay, thank you.
So if you open it up, if you guys want to follow the story, I'll give you a little bit of a background. Let's see. There we go. Exposed her hair. Okay, it's going to be towards the very bottom. Okay, if you're looking inside the English, it's where you scroll all the way down until it says, Rav says, On, son of Peleth, did not repent on his own, rather his wife saved him. You guys want to go down there? Rav says, On, or On, son of Peleth, did not repent on his own, rather his wife saved him. If anybody wants a little bit more time, that's fine.
That's okay. I should be able to find it.
Everybody got it? Okay, no problem. Now let me tell you the story, the background. It's a very important story with a very powerful lesson, I think. When the Torah talks about when the congregation came to rise against Moses and Aaron, it mentions 4 people. It says Korach, Dasan, Aviram, and On ben Peles. Korach, we know Korach. Korach was the first cousin of Moses. He was the ringleader. Dasan and Aviram were they fought a lot. They were all the issues in the Torah. You know that story when Moses killed somebody in Egypt that ultimately led him to run away. Yeah, he saw this Egyptian man beating up on a Jew, and then Moses killed him. And then Moses didn't run away right then and there. The next day, he saw 2 Jews fighting. Those were Dasan and Aviram. They were fighting with each other. They fought all the time. They were very angry people. They were holy people, but very angry. And Dasan turns to Aviram turns to Moses when Moses comes and says, hey guys, chill out. He says, what, are you going to kill us like you killed that other guy yesterday? And that's when Moses realized that everyone knew what had happened, and Pharaoh was ultimately trying to kill him, was going to kill him now that everybody knew. So Moses had to run away. So Dasan and Aviram were not very nice people. So Dasan, Aviram, and On ben Pelas. On ben Pelas, we don't know who he is, but we know but something very interesting. The Torah, right after the whole story takes place, they bring the incense, and then basically everybody starts to die. All those people start to die. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story. It says who died. It says Korach, Dasan, Aviram, and the rest of the congregation. It leaves out the guy On ben Pelas. We mentioned On ben Pelas just before. Why did you leave him out over here? So here's the story. It's a very interesting story. So going back inside the Gemara, maybe I'll just read it in English. It says, Amar Rav On ben Pelas Ishtoi Hitzilata. It says that On ben Pelas' wife saved him. Why? What happened? So it says, Amra Le, she said to him, my nafkalach, what are you going to gain by this rebel, by this rebellion over here? So this is the night before, right? The night before the rebellion. Yeah, everybody came to Moses and they said, hey, we want to do this showdown with you. Moses said, okay, tomorrow morning we're going to bring the incense and we'll see who's ultimately going to live and who's ultimately going to die. So the night before, he's having a discussion with his wife. And his wife is like, what the heck is wrong with you? My nafkalach, what are you going to gain from this? Why are you joining in tomorrow? My nafkalach mine, Imar, Rava, if Moses is going to win, then Ant Talmida, you'll be his student. The Imar, Rabba, Ant Talmida. And if Korach wins, okay, so you'll be his student. In other words, why do you need to join in? Let them have their fight. Let them do their own thing. And whoever comes out victorious, that's who will be. Why do you need to take part in it? Just wait to see what happens. So Amar Allah, he said back to her, my Avid, what can I do? Havi be'etza. Vishtibayi li bahadayu. I've already said I'm going to join you guys. And if I don't join me, perhaps they'll kill me. I don't know what, I already told them I'm going to join in on their play, on their fun. Yeah, I'm sure in our life we have many times where we commit to something and it was, we're like, oh my gosh, how do I get out of here? But I can't. And I'm only going to be made fun of, or I'm going to hurt my reputation, whether I do go to this party or I don't go to this party. Yeah. So fine. She said, Be'etza ishtibayili, bahadayu. Amra le yadana dekula kanishta kadishta, ninu. You know what? She goes, I have an idea. They're all holy people. The Torah itself calls them all very holy. In other words, they were very religious Jews. And what happened? Ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. It says itself in the Torah that this congregation of people, they're all holy. They're all kedoshim. They're all holy people. So Amra Le, she said to him, Tuv, da'ana matzilanelach. Don't worry about it. I'm going to save you tomorrow. Ishtakite chamra varavite. He gave her very strong wine. She gave him very strong wine. Vanise gavya oisna albava. And he fell asleep. And he got very drunk. And she sat at the entrance of the tent. What happened? Next page, the top of page 110a. Visisrasa lamaze kaldasi chazi hadar adachi vahachi yiblayiluhu. And she uncovered her hair as if she was about to take a bath. And when the people came, they saw her, they were like, whoa. And with that, they left. What exactly happened? Basically, these men were very holy men, like it says, but they, even though they had ill intentions and nevertheless, they were very holy. And their wives were very modest. And she said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand at the entrance of the tent while you take a nap. In other words, she got him really drunk, and he passed out. And when the group came to take him and pick him up in the morning, she walked to the tent and she started like getting undressed. She started getting basically like naked. She exposed her arms, she took off her hair, and they said, "Whoa, this guy is not one of us. If his wife is so immodest, she's definitely not one of us." And with that, they were like, "We can't have him part of our group because he's going to get us killed. He's not a very holy guy." So with that, they left. And eventually they went and they did their showdown, and Owen woke up late in the morning because he was super drunk. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, like I forgot to join the group." And she said, "Don't worry, the whole story is over." Now, contrast that, should she ultimately saved his life? The Gemara says in another place, the Medrash tells us, that Korach's wife incited him to rebel against Moses. And she said she was the one that ultimately put in his mind that he should be the leader. Because she said, like I told you before, that Aaron was part of the sin of the golden calf. And it was nepotism that Moses is putting in it. She fed him all that information. And it was due to her, that he ultimately was like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm going to stand up and do what I need to do." And that's why the Gemara says, the Torah says, that not only did he die, but his wife died and his children also died. And the lesson over here, this is why the Torah, I had it in a post on Instagram, this is why the Torah says, Eishes chayil ateres baila, that the crown of the husband is his wife. That however she acts, all the blessings and success in his life come through her. The Torah is teaching us that you think you're like some big genius and you're working hard and you have great ideas. Nevertheless, all your success comes thanks to the woman in your life. That's what the Torah is saying. That the crown, the ultimate jewel, that which gives you your identity is your wife. And that's part of what the Torah is trying to bring out over here by going into this great detail about On ben Pelas's wife. And that's why the Torah itself leaves you to want to understand what happened to this guy On ben Pelas and ask questions on what happened with On ben Pelas. Does anybody have any questions? So I need like a little bit more feedback. I know I muted you guys. I'm not
Rabbi,
sure. Yeah.
Quick question. How are you today, first of all?
Thank God.
Okay, first quick question. Do we hear about On anywhere else in the Torah, on the Medrash, or besides this one instance? Do we hear about him anywhere else?
No, not inside the Torah. This is the only time he's ever mentioned. He's only mentioned once. That's it.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, the whole story is going to be contrasted. If you continue reading in the Gemara, Korach's wife said to him, "See what Moses is doing. He's the king. He appointed his brother to be the high priest." Yeah, the Gemara goes on to explain that trying to contrast the two women. And the deeper lesson over here is that really Korach, we have this duality within us. Yeah, first of all, it shows on how important character is. I just want to tell you that the word for measure in Torah is midot, which also shares the same word. Midot is the same word for measure. How do you measure a person? The word for measure is midot. It's also the same word as character. How do you measure a person? By their character. And a person's character, like we said before, could be everybody has a mixture of good and bad within them. That's the way when God, by the sin of the first fruit, it's a very interesting story. By the sin of the first fruit, I did a post on it just recently. By the sin of the first fruit, Adam and Eve ate from the fruit, but they also gave to every other animal the piece of fruit, whether it was we don't know if it was it's not clear whether it was a grape or whether it was a fig, not really sure. Nevertheless, they gave to all the animals, and therefore all the animals now have a mixture of good and bad and the ability to die, except for that one bird. Except for the one bird, right? Didn't I tell you? I don't know if you guys saw that. The phoenix. Yeah, the phoenix in the Torah, it's a real bird. The phoenix lives forever. After 1,000 years, it burns up and it leaves an egg. And inside the egg is its essence, and it's reborn again, and it lives forever. But nevertheless, everything else in this world has a mixture of good and bad in it. Same thing with Korach, and same thing with all of his people that he had. Like I said before, they all had the ability to become good and righteous people and live out their potential. But the other part, there was another side of them that took over them, and it was instigated by their wives, and Owen's wife instigated him to be good and to be successful and to do the right thing, while Korach's wife instigated him to do something negative, and ultimately led to the downfall. And well, there's a lot more lessons. And in fact, tonight when I do just an overview of the exact the whole parsha, you'll see there are a lot more lessons in the story. But I want to ask, I haven't really figured out the best way to learn inside the Gemara. If there's a better way, would you guys like the English and the Hebrew? And we just go along and we read it together, and then I'll just say the lesson at the end. Would that be better than just giving it to you in the Hebrew and trying to follow along? That might have been a little bit confusing. I'm not sure.
Yes, please. The one with both English and Hebrew, please.
You want English and Hebrew. So what I'm going to do is,
unless you're going to teach us Hebrew at the same time, I wouldn't even know.
It would be cool if I could do that. So I will start printing out the hard scroll ones, which have the English and the Hebrew together with it.
Okay.
And with that, we will. Okay, that might be a better way to learn it. I guess I just wanted you guys to see exactly what it looks like on the inside. You know, the real deal Aramaic. You got Rashi and Tosfos, and all the different Makomos, all the different whatever. Maybe one day we'll go into like what exactly we're looking at. But I thought maybe it would be good to jump right in, and just like when you want to watch a movie, yeah. If you want to get into a movie, what's a preview? A preview doesn't show you the beginning of the movie. A preview jumps right into the middle of the movie and shows like an exciting part. So I thought maybe instead of just starting from the beginning and giving you a whole introduction of what the Torah, the Mishnah, and the Gemara and all these things are, we'll just jump right in. But maybe I think what we'll do next time is I'll give you the English and the Hebrew. You can read it even beforehand, and then we'll discuss it and give you a novel insight. In fact, there'll probably be a different rabbi that will do it next time. There's a guy who is very good at Gemara, very good at Talmud. I'm more of the Hasidus, Kabbalah. I like the soul of the Torah more than what's called the body of the Torah. I'm sure most of you are spiritual people like myself. That's more of my forte. But nevertheless, I'm glad we got a little bit of a taste. And if you have any questions, let me know. So normally 8 o'clock at night, there would be a question and answer. And if you all have my WhatsApp, the best thing to do is either email me or WhatsApp me your questions. And sometimes the questions require some research. So if you can give it to me early so I can do research on it in case I need to, and then I'll pick the best questions, I think, or the ones that perhaps everyone's asking. And I'll say the question and I'll give you the answer. But for tonight, I'm not sure there's gonna be enough time. I'm just gonna give an overview of the Parsha with a little bit of Kabbalah. It'll be outside. And it should be very fair and simple and straightforward. Not text-based. Text-based gets a little bit tricky, so not text-based. But we'll go into that.
Can I have a question, Rabbi?
Yeah, sure.
So the Mishnah and the Gemara is inside the Talmud, or Talmud,
Yes.
Mishnah, and Gemara is out.
Yes, in fact.
What about Midrash? Midrash like
Yeah,
the other book, or?
yeah, Medrash is a different book. Very good. Medrash is a different book. Medrash was written the same time as the Mishnah and the Gemara. It was developed around the same time, really by the Gemara time. And it fills in all the gaps, of weaves the story. It paints a much broader picture, a much more descriptive picture of what was going on in the rebellion, for example, over here. It'll even start talking about who Owen ben Pelas's wife was. Who was she? She probably came from some very well-known family. Well, she came from the tribe of Levi, So she was a distant cousin of Moses and Aaron. So she was probably very, very holy. I'm sure it gets into great detail. But there are 5 main books on the Medrash, and that go through the Parsha. And then there's Medrash on the prophets and Psalms, and everything has a Medrash to it. Now, whether the Medrash can always be taken literally is up for debate. The Rambam holds that it's not to be taken literally, but other authorities say that it is. So when it says that there were 8 million Jews, it says 15 million Jews died in Egypt, did not leave Egypt. Only 3 million left. 15 million did not. That's up for debate. Was there really 15 million that died, or were there not 15 million that died? If there were 15 million that died, that means the population of Egypt was about 89 million, which is, we know basically how large Egypt was. It's not really, is that possible? That 89 million people could have lived in a place that was actually much smaller than the Egypt of today, in one particular city, whatever. It's up for debate. It's up for, I think, no, not even 89 million. I think it was like 289 million, which is like some crazy number, like for this small area of land. But yeah, there'll be a lot of Medrash. In fact, when I give the Chumash class, there'll be a lot of Medrash. I'll throw that in, and I'll make sure to say what is Medrash and what isn't. So the Mishnah, like I said, the Mishnah is this whole thing. The joke is for every one line of Mishnah, for every 5 lines of Mishnah, or every 1 line of Mishnah, there's 10 pages of Gemara discussing and dissecting. And there's a lot of tangents in the Torah. I'll tell you, in yeshiva, when do you learn the most? When there was a tangent, when the teacher was giving a class and they went off topic a little bit, and by lunchtime, lunch and dinner time, when you're just sitting at the table, someone said, you know, something interesting I just learned. That's when the person learned the most. A tangent in Torah, by the way, in yeshiva class, although they're encouraged, but a tangent literally is not like if we're learning about China, and then all of a sudden you start asking me about the flowers outside or a tree. A tangent means we're on a road and there's like an exit. Yeah, imagine you're in New York City and we're on a road in New York City, and you say, oh, can you teach me about the Statue of Liberty? And then we keep going. Can you teach me about the World Trade Center? Can you talk to me about the East River? But it's all within the topic of New York, so to speak. Don't start asking me about a whole different unrelated topic. So tangents are, we'll go on a lot of tangents if I feel that they're very necessary. Yeah, so with that, guys, that was a little bit of a, we'll work the kinks out, but thank you very much for joining. And next time we do a Gemara class, I'll give in the English and the Hebrew. You can look at it before, and maybe we'll even take turns reading a little bit, and I'll give you interpretation and what the lesson should be, and we'll take it from there. So I don't know if anybody will be joining me tonight at 8 o'clock. Again, there'll be a recording. We can take it. We'll do it outside the class, outside an overview of the Torah portion of the week, and a practical lesson. All right. Thank you very much for joining the very first class.
See you, everybody.
Okay. See you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.